The first ray of sunlight had barely touched the windows of Beatrix's room when Helena's silhouette appeared gently at the door. With a smile that reflected the morning light, she approached the bed where Beatrix, still nestled among the blankets, was enjoying the last moments of sleep. "Bea, dear, it's time to wake up," Helena whispered with a voice that carried the warmth of an embrace. Beatrix mumbled something unintelligible, turning in the bed, but her eyes began to slowly open, drawn by the promise of a new day. "Grandma, it's Sunday." Beatrix finally stretched, remembering the special day she had ahead. "Yes, my love, and today is a different Sunday," Helena responded, pulling back the curtains to let in more light. "Let's do something special, just you and me." As they descended the stairs, the aroma of fresh coffee and toast invaded the environment, mingling with the sweet scent of the flowers that Helena tenderly cultivated in the winter garden. In the kitchen, the table was set simply, but with a touch of care evident in the small details. The cloth napkin with hand embroidery beside Beatrix's plate, the teacup adorned with rose patterns that she so adored. Helena served Beatrix's favorite cereals, a crunchy mix of oats, honey, and dried fruits, and watched with a smile as Beatrix plunged her spoon into the milk, creating little whirlpools in the bowl. "How is it, dear?" "I hope it's as good as the ones your mother makes," Helena said, also offering a freshly squeezed glass of orange juice. "It's delicious, Grandma. Better than I expected," Beatrix replied sincerely, her eyes gleaming with gratitude and anticipation for the day that was beginning. Helena sat next to her, taking a sip of her tea while thinking about the day she had planned. "Today, we're going to the Central Park, as we usually do. But it will be just us two this time. Your parents needed to sort out some things, so they gave us the chance to have a day to ourselves," Helena explained, gently touching Beatrix's hand on the table. Beatrix nodded, slightly disappointed not to have her parents' company but still excited about the idea of spending the day with her grandma. "It's going to be a special day, isn't it?" she asked, her voice filled with youthful hope. "Indeed, dear. A very special day," confirmed Helena, with a mysterious twinkle in her eyes that only added more charm to the adventure that lay ahead. They finished breakfast with light conversations about what they hoped to do in the park, from feeding the ducks at the lake to exploring the new paths that had been recently added. Once they were done, they collected the dishes and utensils together, placing everything in the dishwasher. Then, Beatrix hurried to get dressed, carefully choosing her favorite outfit for the occasion: a light dress with prints of tiny wildflowers and her most comfortable pair of sneakers. Helena, on the other hand, dressed practically yet elegantly, choosing a long skirt and a short-sleeved blouse. Before leaving, Helena grabbed a small cloth bag, placing inside some fruits and a bottle of water, preparing for any needs that might arise during the day at the park. With everything ready, they exchanged a look of complicity and expectation. Then, hand in hand, they stepped out the front door, ready to embark on the day's adventure, walking towards the park located at the heart of the small town. As they advanced, the early colors of the day unfolded before them, promising discoveries and moments of pure joy. This was just the beginning of a day that promised to be unforgettable. The cool morning breeze caressed the leaves of the trees as Beatrix and Helena made their way to the Central Park. The streets were still tranquil, with only a few residents walking their dogs or jogging to keep fit. The city was gently waking under the morning sun, painting the sky in soft shades of blue and pink. Beatrix, holding her grandmother's hand, occasionally skipped along, a ball of contagious energy. The sidewalk led them along a familiar path, yet the girl observed everything as if it were a new discovery, every flower and every bird a novelty for her curious eyes. "Look, Grandma." Beatrix pointed to a small dog playing on the lawn of a house. "He seems happy today, doesn't he?" "Yes, dear, very happy," Helena responded, smiling at the purity of her granddaughter's observation. "Animals always seem to enjoy every moment, don't they?" As they approached the park, more families joined the path. Beatrix noticed that, unlike them, almost all the children were accompanied by both parents, who chatted animatedly among themselves or with their children. The memory of her own parents sprang to mind, bringing a pang of longing. "Grandma Helena," Beatrix began, her voice a mix of curiosity and melancholy. "When will I see Mom and Dad again? I miss them." Helena looked at Beatrix, her eyes reflecting understanding and tenderness. She squeezed her granddaughter's hand a little tighter and replied sweetly, "Soon, my dear, soon. They are taking care of some important things, but they will return as soon as they can. They always come back, don't they?" "Yes," Beatrix murmured, half convinced. "But I wish they were here today, to see how beautiful the park is with all these new flowers." "I know, dear, I know," Helena said, stopping for a moment to crouch down to Beatrix's height. "But today, you have me, and we are going to make this one of our best days. How about we pretend we are explorers searching for hidden treasure? How does that sound?" A smile spread across Beatrix's face. "That sounds fun, Grandma. What shall we explore first?" "Well, we could start with the lake. I heard there are new ducklings there. Then, we can visit the butterfly garden. You still like butterflies, don't you?" Helena proposed, standing up and resuming their walk. "I love butterflies," exclaimed Beatrix, her momentary sadness replaced by renewed enthusiasm. "They are so beautiful and magical." The two continued on their way, chatting about butterflies, ducklings, and all the small wonders the park promised to offer. Beatrix, though still missing her parents, found comfort in the stories and the company of her grandmother. Together, they crossed the park gate, greeted by the song of birds and a gentle breeze that seemed to whisper a welcome. Helena watched Beatrix run ahead, her hair fluttering in the wind, and felt a mix of joy and responsibility. She knew that this day was destined to be memorable, not just for what they would do, but for the bond they would strengthen. And as Beatrix was distracted by the nature around them, Helena allowed herself a moment of reflection, pondering how to explain the complexities of adult life to a child just beginning to face the realities of the world. The park unfolded before them, a green carpet dotted with colors and life, promising to be the perfect setting for a day full of adventures and discoveries. As Beatrix and Helena entered the park, the sounds of children's laughter, birds chirping, and leaves rustling in the wind composed a symphony of life and joy. Families spread out on the lawns, children chasing after colorful balls, and elderly couples walking hand in hand completed the picture of a perfect day in the Central Park. Beatrix, her eyes sparkling with anticipation, gently tugged at Helena's hand, guiding her toward the lake where ducklings swam peacefully. "Look, Grandma! The ducklings!" she exclaimed, pointing excitedly. Helena smiled, following her granddaughter's gaze. "Yes, they're right there. Aren't they cute?" "They always seem so content," Helena responded, watching the ducklings with an expression of contentment. However, as they walked toward the lake, an unpleasant scene caught Beatrix's attention. A little way off, near a bench under a large tree, an elderly man in worn clothes was sitting on the ground, trying to shield a skinny dog that was shivering. A young couple stood in front of him, their expressions disdainful. The man gestured aggressively while the woman held a coffee cup, waving it threateningly. "Why don't you just leave this place? This park isn't for people like you," the young man yelled, his voice laden with hostility. Beatrix felt a pang of sadness at seeing the fear in the eyes of the old man and his dog. Without hesitation, she let go of Helena's hand and began walking toward them, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and compassion. "Beatrix, wait," Helena called, concerned, but Beatrix was already determined and didn't stop. As she drew closer, Beatrix spoke with a courage that surprised even herself. "Why are you being so mean to him? He hasn't done anything to you." The young couple turned to Beatrix, surprised by her intervention. The young woman looked down at Beatrix condescendingly and said, "You're just a child. What do you know about the world? This place is for clean families, not for dirty beggars." Beatrix, though intimidated, stood her ground. "He has just as much right to be here as anyone. He and his dog aren't hurting anyone." The old man, noticing Beatrix's defense, looked at her with a mix of gratitude and surprise. "Thank you, young lady. But don't worry, we don't want any trouble," he said in a hoarse voice, attempting to get up with the aid of his trembling hand. Helena, who had quickly approached, placed her hand on Beatrix's shoulder, whispering, "Are you okay, dear?" Before Beatrix could respond, Helena addressed the couple. "You should be ashamed of treating someone like this. This park is a place for everyone, not just for those you think deserve to be here." Helena's words and the arrival of more onlookers curious about the commotion made the couple hesitate. Visibly uncomfortable with the disapproving looks they were receiving, they muttered some excuse and quickly moved away, leaving the old man and his dog in peace. Beatrix looked at the man, who was now soothing his dog, trying to calm it down. "What's his name?" she asked, pointing to the dog that was beginning to relax. "His name is Max," the man replied with a small smile, clearly relieved by the end of the confrontation. Helena, watching the scene, felt a mix of pride and concern. "You were very brave, Beatrix," she said, wrapping her granddaughter in a hug. "But we need to be careful, okay?" Beatrix nodded, happy to have done something good, but still worried about the man and Max. She didn't know that a morning of play would turn into an act of defense against injustice. After the young couple walked away, Beatrix approached the elderly man, who was still sitting on the ground next to Max, his loyal dog. With a delicacy surprising for a child her age, she extended her hand to help him up. "Come on, Mr. Michael, let me help you," Beatrix said, trying to disguise the concern in her voice. Michael looked at her with tired eyes, but full of gratitude. "Thank you, young lady. You are very kind," he responded, accepting Beatrix's hand and struggling to stand up with some difficulty. Max barked softly, as if he too was thanking the girl for her intervention. Helena, observing the scene, approached and offered her arm for Michael to lean on. "Michael, isn't it? I remember you. My husband and I used to bring clothes and food to the park. How have you been?" It's been tough days, Helena," Michael admitted with a sigh. "But we're getting by, aren't we, Max?" The dog wagged its tail in response, as if understanding the conversation. Beatrix looked at the man and his dog with an expression of mature concern beyond her years. "I remember you from the picnics we had here. You always had such interesting stories," she said, trying to bring a bit of lightness to the conversation. Michael smiled, a glimpse of happier memories flickering in his eyes. Yes, the picnics. Your mother made the best apple pie I ever tasted," he recalled. Then his smile faded slightly as he looked around, at the park that now seemed less welcoming. "But not everyone in the park is as kind as your family." Helena stroked Michael's arm with empathy. "Don't worry, we're here now. Beatrix, why don't we all go together to buy something to eat? I think a snack would do us all good right now." Beatrix, excited by the idea, readily agreed. "Yes, let's go. There's a sandwich vendor just over there that sells the best sandwiches. They even have options for dogs." Michael chuckled, his raspy laughter sounding like music to Beatrix and Helena. "Sounds like a wonderful plan. Max here loves a good treat." Together, the trio walked slowly toward the sandwich vendor, with Max trotting beside them, his tail wagging with more vigor. In the distance, the park continued to be a buzz of activities, with children running and families enjoying the sunny day. However, for Beatrix, Helena, and Michael, the world seemed to have shrunk to their small bubble of camaraderie and mutual care. They chatted animatedly as they walked, Beatrix and Helena listening attentively as Michael shared more of his stories from the past, some sad, others joyful, all painted with the colors of experience and survival. When they reached the sandwich cart, Helena ordered a sandwich for each, including a special one for Max, who looked eagerly at the food. As they ate, Beatrix couldn't help but feel a warmth in her heart seeing the smile on Michael's face. She knew that despite her young age, she had made a significant difference that day. The shared meal was not just nourishment for the body but also for the soul, reinforcing the bond between them. With their stomachs full and hearts lighter, Helena turned to Michael with a determined expression. "Michael, what do you think about after the snack we head to the City Support Institution? They might be able to offer some assistance. perhaps a more comfortable place for you and Max to spend the nights." Helena's suggestion closed the circle of that encounter, transforming a simple day in the park into a bridge to new possibilities. Michael looked at her, visibly touched, and nodded with a shy smile. "I would appreciate that very much, Helena. And thank you, Beatrix, for today. You are a very special young lady," he said, his eyes shining with a mix of hope and gratitude. Beatrix, feeling more mature and aware of the impact of her actions, smiled back, confident that even the smallest actions can create waves of change. As they prepared to continue their journey, she looked at the park one last time, feeling deeply connected to every tree, every bird, and every happy face that passed by. The tension unfolding between Beatrix, Helena, and the young couple did not go unnoticed by other park visitors. Curious and concerned, some approached to better understand what was happening, forming a small circle around the group. The presence of more onlookers seemed to intensify the atmosphere, and the murmur of side conversations created an almost palpable background noise. Helena, feeling the responsibility to protect Michael and Max, as well as her granddaughter, took the lead with a firm stance. "Young people, it is absolutely unacceptable to treat someone this way, regardless of their situation," she said, her voice clear and strong enough to be heard by everyone around. The young man, who had until then displayed a defiant posture, seemed disconcerted under Helena's reproving gaze and the other parkgoers. "Look, ma'am, we just—" He began to justify himself but was interrupted. "There is no justification for humiliating an elderly man and his animal," Helena interjected, each word laden with authority. "This park is a place of community and respect. If you cannot contribute positively, I suggest you reconsider your presence here." The young woman next to him, still holding her coffee cup, looked around, clearly uncomfortable with the unwanted attention. "We didn't mean to cause a scene," she murmured, her voice trembling in contrast to her earlier firmness. "But you did," Beatrix intervened, surprisingly assertive. "And you should apologize to Mr. Michael and Max." The silence that followed was charged with tension. The young couple exchanged glances, undecided. Finally, the young man sighed, his defensive posture yielding under the weight of the judgmental stares. "Sorry, man. We didn't mean to scare you or your dog," he said, addressing Michael, who watched the scene with an expression of caution and surprise. Michael nodded slightly, accepting the apology, but clearly still shaken by the experience. Max, feeling his owner's relief, relaxed a bit, his tail wagging weakly. Satisfied with the resolution, Helena nodded. "I hope this serves as a lesson on respect and empathy. Let's strive to make this park a place where everyone feels safe and welcome." As the situation seemed to be resolved, the crowd of onlookers began to disperse, some casting sympathetic glances towards Michael and others still discussing the incident among themselves. Helena, making sure Michael was all right, suggested they sit for a moment. "Let's rest a bit on that bench, catch our breath." "Beatrix, do you still want to see the ducklings?" Helena asked, wanting to relieve the tension of the moment and return to the normalcy of their planned outing. "Yes, Grandma," Beatrix replied, relieved to see that justice had been restored, yet still with a trace of concern in her eyes. "But first, can we stay a bit with Mr. Michael and Max? Just to make sure they are really okay." "Of course, dear," Helena responded, guiding the group to a nearby bench. As they sat down, the sun continued to shine over the park, its golden rays seeming to promise that despite the difficult moments, there would always be room for reconciliation and peace. Together, they shared a few tranquil moments, watching people pass by, laughing and playing. Life in the park returned to its usual rhythm, the brief crisis now just a memory in the tapestry of the day. Helena, looking at Beatrix and Michael, felt a wave of gratitude for being there, making a difference, not just for her granddaughter but for someone who clearly needed compassion and support. And as they talked and laughed, a new friendship was forming, woven with the threads of shared experience and strengthened by the unexpected act of courage from a young girl. Sitting together on a bench under the cooling shade of large trees in the park, Helena, Beatrix, Michael, and Max seemed like a small family brought together by unexpected circumstances. As Beatrix stroked Max, who had nestled at her feet, Helena turned her attention to Michael, whose distant gaze appeared lost in thought. "Michael," Helena began, her soft voice breaking the comfortable silence that had formed between them, "you mentioned having difficulty remembering the last few years. Would you like to talk more about that?" Michael sighed, a look of frustration crossing his wrinkled face. "It's as if my life has a gap, Helena. The last 10 years are just empty. I wake up every day trying to piece things together, but nothing makes sense." Beatrix looked at Michael with an expression of deep empathy. "That must be very difficult," she said, her young voice full of understanding. "It is, my dear, it really is," Michael agreed, offering Beatrix a sad smile. "And that's why I usually stay around here, in this park. Sometimes, people like your parents come and help. It makes me feel less forgotten." Helena touched Michael's arm, her mind working quickly. With years of experience at an institution that helped missing people, she knew she could do more for him. "Michael, I worked for many years at an institution for missing persons before I retired. If you allow me, I'd like to use some of my old contacts to help find out more about your past." "Would you do that for me?" Michael asked, a spark of hope lighting up his tired eyes. "Of course," Helena responded with determination. "Everyone deserves to know where they came from and have the chance to reconnect with their history." Beatrix, listening to the conversation, felt inspired by her grandmother's compassion. "And I will help too, Mr. Michael. We'll find your family together." Michael, visibly moved by the offer and support, nodded, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you, Helena. Thank you, Beatrix. I can't express how much this means to me." With a plan in mind, Helena took out her cell phone and began making some calls while Beatrix and Michael continued talking. After a few minutes, Helena finally hung up the phone, an optimistic smile lighting up her face. "I spoke with a friend who still works at the institution. They are willing to help, Michael. We can go there tomorrow if you're ready for it." "I'm more than ready, Helena. I've been waiting for a chance like this for a long time," Michael replied, a new vigor seeming to take hold of him. Helena nodded, pleased with the response. "Great. Let's do that then. Tomorrow will be a big day." Beatrix, feeling useful and happy to help, hugged Michael and Max. "Everything will be all right, Mr. Michael. You'll see." As the sun began to set, tinting the sky orange and pink, the trio remained on the bench, each lost in their thoughts about the possibilities of the next day. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and hope, and even Max seemed to sense the change, barking softly as if approving the plans. As night began to fall over the park, Helena suggested it was time to go home and rest for the big day that awaited them. Together, they rose from the bench, walking slowly out of the park, united by a new purpose and the promise of discoveries that could change Michael's life forever. Dawn brought with it a mix of nervousness and hope. Helena, Beatrix, Michael, and Max met early at the entrance of the park, the place where everything had started. The gentle morning light bathed the trees and the leaf-strewn path, providing a reassuring backdrop for the beginning of their significant journey. Helena had organized everything meticulously. A taxi large enough to comfortably accommodate everyone, including space for Max, was waiting for them. "Good morning, everyone. Are you ready for an important trip?" Helena greeted them with an encouraging smile. "I'm a bit nervous," admitted Michael, petting Max, who seemed to sense his owner's anxiety. "But I'm ready. Thank you, Helena, for doing this for me. It's a new day, Michael. A chance for the answers you've long deserved," Helena responded, helping him into the taxi. During the ride, Beatrix held Michael's hand, trying to offer some comfort. She curiously looked out the window, watching the urban landscape transform into a series of more institutional buildings as they approached their destination. Finally, they arrived at the institution. The building was large and imposing, yet had a welcoming aspect, surrounded by well-kept gardens. Helena led the group to the main entrance, where they were warmly greeted by Paula, the director. "Helena, it's a pleasure to see you again, especially on such a noble mission," Paula greeted them, with a firm handshake. Her gaze then turned to Michael and Max. "And you must be Michael and Max. Welcome to our institution. We are here to assist you in whatever you need." "Thank you, Paula. It has been a tough time, and any help is more than welcome," Michael responded, his voice trembling, revealing his nervousness. Paula smiled understandingly. "I understand, Michael. We will do everything in our power. Come, I'll show you the facilities and explain how we can start working on your case." She guided them through bright corridors and spacious rooms, each decorated simply yet warmly. She showed them the file room, where documents and records of missing persons were meticulously organized, and the meeting room, where case discussions regularly took place. "We use all available tools to assist in cases like Michael's. From old records to modern data searching technology," Paula explained as they walked. "The first thing we will do is register Michael in the system and see if there's any trace of his past in our archives or connected networks." Helena observed everything with a critical eye, ensuring the institution still maintained the high standards from her working days. "Paula, I know he is in good hands here with you." "Certainly, Helena. And who is this young helper you've brought?" Paula asked, smiling at Beatrix. "I'm Beatrix. I'm here to help Mr. Michael too. He is our friend," Beatrix responded with a seriousness impressive for her age. Paula nodded in approval. "Wonderful. It's always good to see new generations getting involved in community work." With the guided tour completed, Paula led them to a small, yet comfortable room where Michael could rest. "Let's start with some basic questions, Michael, and see where that leads us. Are you ready?" Michael nodded, taking a deep breath. "I'm ready." While Michael and Paula began the interview process, Helena and Beatrix sat outside in the small garden of the institution. As they talked about life and its mysteries, Max settled beside them, seemingly relieved by the calm of the environment. Helena looked at Beatrix, feeling a mix of pride and hope. "You've done a good thing, Beatrix. No matter what happens, today you've helped make a difference." Beatrix, contemplating the gravity of her actions, just nodded, watching the sky slowly color with softer shades as the day progressed. While Michael and Paula delved into the initial interview inside the institution, Helena and Beatrix took the opportunity to talk about the day's emotions in the garden. The gentle breeze caressed the leaves of the trees, and the murmur of water from a nearby fountain added a palpable calm to the atmosphere. It was then that Helena noticed the gold watch that Michael had left on a small table next to his chair before entering the interview. "Beatrix, did you see this?" Helena discreetly pointed to the watch, an old model elegantly carved. "Michael never mentioned how he got this, and it seems quite valuable." Beatrix approached, curious. "It's very beautiful, Grandma. Do you think it can help us find out more about it?" "Possibly," Helena murmured, picking up the watch carefully. She examined the object, her fingers sliding over the intricately engraved details on the golden surface. "Watches like this usually have a history. If it's a family item, maybe we can trace its origin." Determined, Helena stood up, watch in hand, and headed back toward the entrance of the institution. Beatrix, holding Max by the leash, followed at her side, equally intrigued by the new clue. They found Paula and Michael concluding their conversation in one of the interview rooms. "Paula, sorry to interrupt," Helena began, "but could you take a look at this watch? Michael brought it with him, and I'm thinking it might be a significant piece." Paula received the watch with an expert's gaze, turning it in her hands and examining the mechanism and inscriptions. "Interesting," she commented. "Gold watches like this are not common. I'll check our records to see if we can find anything similar linked to past cases. Maybe it will give us a clue about Michael's family or where he lived before." Michael, who had been watching attentively, added, "I've always carried this with me. I don't remember where it came from, but I feel it's important." "We'll do our best to find out," Paula promised, already typing some queries into her computer. "If this watch was registered somewhere, or if we have unresolved cases that mention a similar item, we might be able to find connections." As Paula worked on her searches, Helena, Beatrix, and Michael sat down again, waiting in anticipation. Time passed slowly, marked only by the soft ticking of another clock on the wall of the room. Finally, Paula looked up, an expression of surprise and possibility shining on her face. "I found something," she announced, turning the computer screen so that everyone could see. "There is a note about a gold watch very similar to this one, registered as a lost item along with a disappearance report about 10 years ago." Everyone leaned forward, absorbing the information that might be the key to unraveling Michael's past. The energy in the room changed, as if suddenly a long-closed door had begun to open. "This is incredible," Michael said, his voice choked with emotion. "Could it really be something that connects me to who I was before?" "Let's explore this lead," Helena affirmed, placing a comforting hand on Michael's shoulder. "No matter what we find out, we're in this together." Encouraged by the discovery and renewed by hope, they began to plan the next steps. It was necessary to investigate further, contact local authorities, and perhaps even travel to the place where the watch was originally registered. As they discussed, the afternoon began to give way to dusk, and the challenge of discovering Michael's past seemed less intimidating under the cloak of solidarity and mutual support. With a new chapter of their search about to begin, they prepared to move forward together, united by a shared mystery and the promise of revelations that the next day might bring. Several days had passed since the discovery of the gold watch, and each day brought with it a growing sense of anticipation and anxiety. Helena kept in regular contact with Paula and the institution, eager for any new developments that could help reconstruct Michael's past. So, when her phone rang on a quiet morning, Helena expected news, but nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to hear. "Helena, it's Paula. We have a problem," Paula began, her voice tense and filled with urgency. "Michael and Max, they've disappeared. They fled the institution during the night." Helena's heart sank. "How did this happen?" she asked, trying to remain calm, but her mind already racing with possible dire scenarios. "We're still trying to piece everything together. They were in a secure room with controlled access. Someone must have assisted them, or," Paula hesitated, "or he found a way out on his own. We're reviewing the security cameras and questioning the staff." Helena took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. "I'm coming there now. We need to figure out what happened and ensure that Michael and Max are safe." After hanging up the phone, Helena quickly dressed, grabbed her keys, and drove to the institution, her worry growing with each passing minute. Beatrix, who was at home that day, insisted on accompanying her grandmother, concerned for the well-being of Michael and Max. Upon their arrival at the institution, the scene was one of frenetic activity. Staff and security moved urgently, while Paula greeted them with a folder full of security camera prints and reports. "Helena, Beatrix, thank you for coming so quickly. Here's what we know so far," said Paula, showing them some video footage. "Michael and Max were last seen here in the North Corridor. Look, it's as if he knew exactly where he was going." Helena and Beatrix leaned over the images, watching Michael open a side door that led to the institution's gardens. "He looks determined," Helena commented, furrowing her brow. "He doesn't seem to be acting on impulse or out of fear." "That's what worries me," Paula admitted. "He might be trying to resolve something on his own, perhaps something he discovered about his past that we don't yet know." Beatrix, watching the images, felt a mix of admiration and concern. "We need to find him, Grandma. He might need help." Agreeing, Helena quickly discussed with Paula the best way to proceed. They decided to divide tasks. While the institution would coordinate with local authorities and continue to review security footage for any additional clues, Helena and Beatrix would begin searching in places Michael frequented, starting with the park where he had originally been found. "Let's go, Beatrix," said Helena, determined. We have to start immediately. Michael trusted us, and we won't let him face whatever it is alone. With a plan of action in mind, Helena and Beatrix left the institution, heading to the Central Park. The day was clear, but to Helena, every shadow seemed to hide potential dangers. She knew time was of the essence, and the urgency of the search weighed on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. As they approached the park, the reality of the situation settled in. The search for Michael would not be easy, but it was a mission they were determined to accomplish. Upon arriving at the park, Helena and Beatrix began their search for Michael and Max, but a troubling thought persisted in Helena's mind. Recalling the young couple who had initially mistreated Michael, she decided it was crucial to confront them again, seeking to understand if there was any connection between Michael's escape and the earlier hostility. With this in mind, she returned to the institution with Beatrix, determined to get some answers. Back at the institution, Helena immediately requested a meeting with Christoph and Anna. Paula, though hesitant, agreed to summon them for a discussion in the conference room, an austere space lined with certificates and photographs of community events. Christoph and Anna entered the room, visibly uncomfortable with the sudden invitation. Christoph, tall and with a defensive posture, crossed his arms while Anna, more reserved, looked at the floor. "Christoph, Anna, thank you for coming," Helena began, her voice firm and direct. "I'm here because Michael, a man you both know, has disappeared from the institution. Given your history of confrontations with him, I need to know if you have anything to do with this." Christoph frowned, clearly annoyed by the accusation. "Look, I know what we did in the park was wrong, but we have nothing to do with his disappearance. Why would we want to get more involved with him?" Anna remained silent, avoiding eye contact with Helena and Beatrix. Helena, observing the dynamics between the two, pressed further. "I understand you might not want to get involved, Christoph, but it's hard to ignore that you are the son of Director Paula. That could give you access to restricted areas here at the institution." Paula, who had been observing the conversation, intervened. "Helena, I assure you my son would not have done something like this. He knows the rules and the consequences of breaking them." However, Helena was not fully convinced and turned her attention to Anna, who seemed increasingly uncomfortable. "Anna, do you have anything to say? Anything you know could help?" Finally, with a trembling voice, Anna spoke. I don't know anything about his escape, I swear. But Christoph told me he was worried about the attention his mother was giving to Michael's case. That's all I know." Christoph shot Anna a severe look, but the damage was done. The revelation heightened Helena's suspicions, now seeing a possible motive for intimidating or even influencing Michael's disappearance to avoid trouble for Director Paula. "Thank you, Anna. That was very brave of you," Helena said, her mind already considering the next steps. "Paula, I think it would be prudent to review all interactions between Christoph and the staff handling security areas. We need to be sure there was no undue influence." Paula, clearly worried about the implications, reluctantly agreed. "I will personally check. And Christoph, I hope you are not involved in this." With the meeting concluded, Helena and Beatrix left the room, their thoughts swirling with revelations and concerns. While they had not obtained a direct confession, the information gathered pointed to a more complex picture than anticipated. In the car on the way home, Helena shared her thoughts with Beatrix. "We need to stay alert, dear. This situation is more complicated than it appears, and Michael is still out there, possibly needing our help." Beatrix nodded, her young mind trying to keep up with the complexities of the adult world of responsibilities and mysteries. Together, they planned their next visit to the park, hoping that some sign of Michael or Max might emerge now that new leads surfaced about Christoph's possible involvement. After the tensions at the institution, Helena and Beatrix returned home, tired but determined to continue their search for Michael. The gold watch, which could be the key to unraveling Michael's identity and past, was central to Helena's plans for the next phase of the investigation. Upon arriving home, Helena immediately called an old colleague, an expert in antiques and historical objects. "Hello, Richard. It's Helena. I need your help with a very special item, an antique gold watch that may be crucial to a case I'm investigating, she explained as soon as he answered. Of course, Helena, I'll be there tomorrow to take a look. You know, old watches can tell us many stories, not just about the mechanics and art, but also about their owners and the eras they lived in, Richard responded, his voice full of enthusiasm. Pleased, Helena thanked him and hung up, planning to present the watch to Richard the following morning. However, when she went to retrieve the watch to store it in a safe place, a wave of panic overtook her. The watch was not where she had left it. Helena frantically searched the house, shuffling papers and opening drawers, while Beatrix watched her, confused and concerned. Grandma, what's wrong? The watch, Beatrix, I can't find it. I left it right here on this table. Helena murmured, growing increasingly anxious. Beatrix thought for a moment, and then her expression changed. Grandma, Zoe was here earlier today. We were playing in the office. Could she have seen the watch? Helena paused, considering this new information. Zoe, a school friend of Beatrix's, was known for her curiosity and sometimes lack of boundaries. We need to talk to her, dear. She might have taken the watch, perhaps out of curiosity or thinking it was just a toy. Beatrix nodded and quickly picked up her phone to call Zoe. With a slightly trembling voice, she spoke to her friend. Zoe, it's Beatrix. Did you see a gold watch today when you were at my house? There was a pause on the other end before Zoe responded, her voice hesitant. Oh yes, I did. It was so pretty and shiny. I just wanted to see what it was like. It's in my backpack. I'm sorry, Beatrix. I was going to show you later. Relieved but still concerned, Helena took the phone. Zoe, dear, it's very important that you bring the watch back. It's a crucial piece for helping someone. Can you come over now? Yes, Mrs. Helena, I'll bring it right now, Zoe replied, and the line went dead. As they waited for Zoe, Helena reflected on how easily small incidents could turn into major complications. She knew Zoe had no malicious intentions, but the incident underscored the importance of the watch in their hands. Minutes later, Zoe arrived, visibly embarrassed, handing the watch back to Helena with an apology. I'm sorry, Mrs. Helena. I really didn't know it was so important. That's all right, Zoe. Thank you for bringing it back, Helena said, relieved to hold the watch again. With the watch finally secure, Helena and Beatrix prepared for Richard's visit the next morning, hopeful that the expert could shed light on the origin of the watch and perhaps open a new chapter in the search for Michael. With the watch finally back in Helena's safe hands, relief was palpable. She and Beatrix thanked Zoe for her honesty and promptness in returning such a crucial piece for the investigation. With the incident resolved, Helena decided it was time to examine the watch more closely before Richard, the expert, arrived. That afternoon, as Helena carefully cleaned the watch, her son-in-law Ethan arrived for a previously planned visit. Curious about the commotion surrounding the object, he asked to see it. Knowing Ethan's interest in history and antiques, Helena handed him the watch with a brief account of recent events. Ethan took the watch with almost reverent respect, turning it in his hands and examining every detail meticulously. This design, it looks very familiar, he murmured more to himself than to others. After a few moments of reflection, he looked up, his eyes lit with sudden realization. Wait, this is incredible. This is one of the watches my father's company gave to exceptional employees. It was an annual tradition. Only the best received one of these. Helena and Beatrix exchanged surprised looks. Are you sure, Ethan? Helena asked, realizing the possible connection this could imply. Absolutely, Ethan confirmed. I can recognize this design anywhere. My father had a very similar one, given to him when he retired. There was always a special ceremony for it. Intrigued, Helena considered the implications. This could be a major breakthrough. If we can find out exactly when and to whom this watch was given, we might be able to trace part of Michael's lost history. Let me make some calls, Ethan offered. I know some people who still work there. They can check the records and see if there's anything that might help us." As Ethan stepped away to make the calls, Helena reflected on the unexpected twist. Each step that seemed to bring them closer to answers also appeared to unfold more layers in Michael's story. She felt a mix of excitement and caution, knowing that each discovery brought them closer to the truth, but might also reveal complex realities about Michael's past. Beatrix, watching the exchange between her grandmother and her father, felt increasingly involved in the mystery. "Grandma, does this mean Michael might have worked at Ethan's dad's company?" she asked, trying to fit the pieces together. "It's possible, dear," Helena responded. "Or maybe he had some connection to someone who worked there. At this point, all hypotheses are valid." Ethan returned a few minutes later, a hopeful expression on his face. "I managed to speak with my contact. They're going to look through the archives and get back to me as soon as possible." Grateful, Helena nodded. "Thank you, Ethan. This could really help." As the day drew to a close and the possibilities expanded, Helena, Beatrix, and Ethan sat down to discuss their next steps. They knew the path ahead could be complicated, but they were united in their commitment to unravel the mystery of Michael's past, not just for him, but to restore a story that had been lost in time. After Ethan made a series of calls and exchanged information with his contacts at his father's company, they finally received promising news. He entered the living room where Helena and Beatrix were discussing the next steps, holding his phone with a look of triumph. "Helena, Beatrix, I've got something," Ethan announced, his voice laden with excitement. The company's records confirmed that a watch like this was given to an exceptional employee about 15 years ago. The recipient's name was Wilson Moretti, one of the most promising executives at the time. Helena stood up from her seat, her eyes wide with surprise and relief. "Wilson Moretti. So that's Michael's real name. But how did he end up on the streets, and how did he lose his memory?" "The details are still murky," Ethan replied, scrolling through messages on his phone. "But it seems that Wilson suffered a serious health issue, something that eventually led to his amnesia. There's a note about a severe health incident that caused him to step away from work. It appears that after that, he vanished from social media and professional circles." Beatrix, listening intently, held her grandmother's hand. "Does this mean he might have a family looking for him? Someone who might think he's lost or, worse?" "It's very possible," said Helena, thoughtfully. "Ethan, is there any way we can find out if Wilson has family that might still be looking for him?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, I'm working on that. My contact is going to send me more information about his last known residence and possible emergency contacts that were listed when he was still employed." As they waited for the additional information, Helena organized her thoughts and decided that it was essential to prepare for any eventuality. "We need to be ready to reintroduce Wilson to his old life, if possible. This could be a shock for him and his family. I'll reach out to some mental health experts to advise us on the best way to approach this." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of Ethan's phone ringing again. He answered quickly and after a few moments of tense dialogue, hung up with an even more serious expression. "We have an address and some contacts. Wilson had a wife and a daughter when he disappeared. They declared him legally dead about 2 years ago after extensive searches." Helena covered her mouth with her hand, shocked. "Oh my God, that's tragic. They must have suffered so much. We need to be very careful about how we handle this." "I agree," said Ethan. "I'll arrange a meeting with them. It will be delicate, but it's the right thing to do." As they prepared for the next step, Helena felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. She knew they were about to change many people's lives forever. With the new information in hand, everyone felt the weight of responsibility as they planned for Wilson's reunion with his family, a moment that promised to be as heartrending as it was heartwarming. With the information that Wilson, known as Michael during his amnesia, had a family, the situation took on a new, urgent, and emotional direction. Ethan remained in constant contact with Wilson's family, carefully arranging the meeting that could reunite a shattered family. However, before the plans could be finalized, a desperate call from an acquaintance in the Central Park drastically altered the course of events. "Helena, come quickly. It's Michael. He's in danger." The voice on the other end trembled with urgency. Helena, accompanied by Beatrix, rushed to the car, heading to the Central Park, their hearts heavy with fear of what they might find. Upon arrival, they saw a crowd gathered on the bridge that crossed the central lake of the park. Beatrix didn't wait, running ahead to see what was happening. On the bridge, Michael and Max were cornered by an angry group, led by Christoph, who appeared furious. Michael, visibly confused and scared, held Max by the leash, trying to calm him while facing the hostile advances. "You have no business here, you dirty old man," Christoph yelled, advancing threateningly toward Michael. Beatrix, unable to contain herself, ran forward, placing herself between Michael and Christoph. "Stop! Don't touch him! He hasn't done anything to you," she shouted, her voice firm despite the evident fear. Helena arrived beside Beatrix, placing her hand on her shoulder, reinforcing her presence. "Christoph, back off now. This is unacceptable. The police are on their way." The tension on the bridge was palpable, with onlookers holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Then, a sleek black car abruptly stopped at the end of the bridge, and a young, elegant woman got out quickly. It was Alice, Wilson's granddaughter, whom Helena had contacted earlier. "Leave my grandfather alone," Alice shouted, running toward the crowd, her voice cutting through the chilly morning air. The arrival of the police, along with Alice's intervention, shifted the balance of power. The officers quickly moved through the crowd, separating Christoph and his group from Michael and Max. Christoph was restrained while the officers took statements from those involved. Alice hugged Michael, tears streaming down her face as she murmured words of comfort. "It's all right now, Grandpa. I'm here." Helena and Beatrix watched, relieved to see that a tragedy had been averted. With the situation under control, Helena approached Alice, introducing herself and quickly explaining the connection. "I'm Helena. I've been helping your grandfather recover his memory. We are so grateful you arrived in time." Alice looked at Helena, recognition and gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you for everything you've done for him. I was on my way to meet him after Ethan called me. I didn't expect to find him in danger." As the police finalized the incident, Helena, Beatrix, Alice, and a now safe Michael and Max gathered to discuss the next steps. It was clear that reintegrating Wilson into his life and family would be a delicate and emotional process, but with everyone's support, he had a chance to rebuild his life. The daylight began to fade, and with it, the chaos of the morning gave way to a sense of renewed hope. Together, they began to walk away from the bridge, ready to face together the challenges and joys that the future held. After the tumultuous events on the bridge, Wilson's life began to take a new direction, marked by revelations and reunions. With his true identity as Wilson Moretti restored, he was finally able to return to the bosom of his family who, despite having faced grief and loss, welcomed him back with open arms and hearts overflowing with relief and renewed love. Alice, steadfast in her role as a dedicated granddaughter, took the lead in legal actions against the aggressors who had threatened her grandfather. Her determination not only ensured that justice was served, but also protected other vulnerable individuals frequenting the institution or the park, establishing an important precedent in the community. Meanwhile, the fallout from Christoph's behavior and his connection to his mother, Paula, led to a deeper investigation within the institution. Revelations about negligence and undue favoritism emerged, culminating in Paula's removal from her position as director. The institution began a period of review and restructuring, seeking to restore its original mission to serve the community with integrity and compassion. Helena and Beatrix, whose tireless efforts helped to uncover the truth behind Wilson's story, were recognized by the local community. In a small ceremony organized by neighborhood residents and parkgoers, both received plaques of appreciation. The speeches delivered highlighted not only their courageous actions but also the spirit of determination and kindness they demonstrated throughout the situation. "I never imagined that our little investigation project would take us this far," Helena said during the ceremony, with Beatrix by her side. "This isn't just recognition for us, but a celebration of what we can achieve when the community unites for a just cause." Beatrix, though younger, felt the weight and significance of their actions. "I've learned from my grandmother that every small act of kindness can lead to major changes. I'm glad we made a difference in Mr. Wilson's life," she shared with the audience, who responded with warm applause. With Wilson's family now restored and injustices corrected, the community felt a renewed wave of hope and trust in the institutions meant to protect them. Wilson, though still adjusting to his new reality, found solace and purpose in his family and new activities that kept him connected and engaged. For Helena, this case reignited a passion for justice and care for others that she had always valued. She continued to be an active figure in the community, now even more respected and cherished by all who knew her story and her integrity. Thus, what began as a mission to uncover the truth transformed into a journey of healing and renewal. For Wilson, Helena, Beatrix, and everyone involved, it was not just the end of a chapter marked by mysteries and adversities, but the beginning of a new chapter filled with possibilities and renewed promises.
So, if you're not subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button below and join our community. Thank you for your support and see you in the next videos.